Hi, everybody. Welcome to Watches with Dennis. I am back for this Saturday live stream. We'll do some housekeeping stuff first, but then we will dive into my hopes for Watches and Wonders 2025. And I labeled it as hopes. It's not really a prediction episode. There are plenty of people out there that are posting their predictions. We can discuss predictions if you want, but April 1st is when the Geneva iteration, which is the one everyone talks about for Watches and Wonders, is going to launch. So Tuesday. And I will try and put out some first thoughts videos, maybe just like the traditional format where you'll just hear audio overlay with some of the promotional images that they release to talk about a few of those models like I typically do. It's tough because I work that day, or I should be at least, so I won't be able just to dive in and do a whole lot on that. So housekeeping. So I have COVID again, so hopefully I don't sound too bad. I may cough a bit. I apparently have rebound COVID, so is what I'm taking it to be, because I had it. I recorded when I first had it and was still contagious at that point. And I got better. And I had a pinball convention in Texas, and then I had a work conference, and I got back and I started feeling bad again on Thursday. Not quite as bad, but anyway, I'm still testing positive again. So apparently this happens 10% of the time. So anyway, I didn't feel too bad the first time, and I feel better now even, but I'm still a little stuffy. So apologies for my poor voice work. My pinball trip in Texas that I tend to do every March, they have watch dealers that I don't have access to in Kansas City. So last year when I went down was the first time I had been to a Vacheron boutique. It was also the first time I had been to a Audemars Piguet boutique. I had one goal this year, and I did it. I went to the Swatch store. I have never been to a Swatch boutique. The closest ones I think are there, and maybe Chicago, I think, might have one. So again, those are 8-hour drives. So anyway, went there, didn't buy anything. I wasn't going to just buy something just because, even though the prices are low enough on Swatch watches, it was very tempting to go ahead and do an impulse purchase. Finally handled bioceramic. I'm not impressed. I'd probably steer more towards a metal Swatch watch, but most of what they have at this point happen to be some form of plastic or bioceramic, which just seems to be glorified plastic. So anyway, but they did have a lot of models there. So I had a good time checking that out. I did also, I was there, go ahead and check out. They had a Breitling in the mall that hosts Swatch in Dallas. They had a Breitling dealer. I checked them out. They had a Tag dealer. I checked them out. They had an Omega dealer. Checked them out. Finally got to look in person at the first Omega in space, which I really like the sizing of that watch. But again, I'm not really looking for any new chronographs. Speaking of watches, so today, if I can get it off so it's a little easier to show you guys, on the wrist is my Baltic. This is the Aquascaf. I can never position myself quite right. Aquascaf bronze brown. So the dial is sort of a tropical brown color. And obviously the casework is bronze. This is one of my micro brand watches. I have not worn this, I think, in over a month. So anyway, I decided to go ahead and wear it. This is actually my only dive watch that I happen to own at this time. So anyway, that's the housekeeping stuff. Let me greet the chat, and then we will go into these predictions, or excuse me, hopes, not predictions. If you want to do predictions, we can do them. But hopes for Watches and Wonders 2025. Good morning, Kevin. Glad you could make it with us. David, thank you for being a 99-cent club member, and good morning to you. Tuna and Rob A, I greet both of you, and thank you both for being club members. And Patel, welcome to the live stream. Dennis, should I wait for the deep land dweller? No, you shouldn't. You don't need to go that deep. You just need the regular land dweller. So this is a reference to what information is coming out regarding, there was a purported leak of an image for Rolex, and we'll go ahead and start with Rolex. For those of you that don't know, these are the brands that will be at Watches and Wonders. So this is the Watches and Wonders website. So you can see they've got 60 of them. Swatch Group doesn't play with the Watches and Wonders crew. So you won't see any Swatch brands like Mito or Omega or Longines, but you will see a lot of the other players in the space. And so obviously Rolex, let's go ahead and get them out of the way. Patel brought them up. Here's the video that they've officially released. So there was a leaked image that was talking about a land dweller. A lot of people hate the name. I agree. The name is, I get it, Sky Dweller, but land dweller doesn't, I don't know. It seems a little weird. But hey, names are nothing. I don't buy watches based off of names. But then these images came out regarding a new watch release. And so that's what I think more interesting than discussing whether or not the Land Dweller will be called the Land Dweller. Is this new model that thing? But it does look like there is a new model. Integrated sports bracelet style watch. Very late to the party, but Rolex was never known to be on the leading edge of anything at this point. However, given Rolex is at the top tier of the bracelet game, I think a lot of people are going to be very excited about the comfort that that sort of integrated bracelet watch would provide. The thing is, a lot of integrated bracelet sports watches are comfortable. That's kind of the design thing. So it'll be interesting. My hope was going to be, before I had seen that I would like to see Rolex finally branch another model into titanium. That was really all I was hoping for out of them. Maybe this new watch will have a titanium version. They've also teased a new movement, I think a dual barrel movement. I'm not as interested. Rolex's movements are already exceedingly robust with very long service intervals and very high accuracy. So I'm sure the new movement will achieve that as well. If they're going with a double barrel approach, I'm assuming we're going to maybe see a significant jump up in power reserve. But I don't know if they're going to be dropping those all into all of the models. Probably not immediately. Maybe just this new integrated bracelet watch. So that's pretty much all I could say regarding my hopes. I think this is a big year for Datejust. Maybe they could, you want to get a little more wild, maybe they could do a titanium Datejust and offer that as an option. I still don't think that they're going to do a titanium Submariner. I just don't think that they want to go that route. If they do a Datejust, it could just be one model, with one dial color. And they've already been willing to have very limited, difficult to get Datejusts, like the Celebration dial, for example, is what I'm thinking of off the top of my head. So I'm curious about that. The bracelet for this new integrated bracelet watch, also people have zoomed in. It's like a flat link bracelet. It has some presidential vibes, but it's different in terms of the bracelet configuration. That should be, it'll be interesting. I really like Rolex bracelets a lot. I won't say they're the best bracelets, period, but at the price point, I think they are. I've never met another brand that at retail versus retail has a better bracelet than Rolex does. So I think that's part of the reason why why they win over so many fans. I know people who are Rolex skeptics who ended up getting Rolexes and love them because of the bracelet. So it's a pretty impressive sort of item. So anyway, that's really all my hope was and still is. I'd like to see them do something else in a material that isn't a regular precious, so gold or platinum, and isn't steel. So my go-to would be titanium, because I don't think Rolex pushes the boundary and jumps into ceramic or anything. I don't have a hope for that, much less a prediction. Chat, Koji, thank you for being a club member, by the way. Koji says, the landlubber. That's how he said it, exactly how he said it. And so that is how I have said it. Trap Vision, welcome to the chat. Enjoyed watching you earlier today. David says, no, the new movement is a natural escapement. There's nothing in the teaser about a double barrel. Thank you for the correction. I don't know where I got the thing from. Maybe I saw someone speculating that they were going to roll out a double barrel escapement. Yes, I do recall reading about the natural escapement, though. So I see Patel is going to expand on that. The natural escapement may play into the rumor that Rolex is trying to compete with the updated Metis 0 to +2. That's the deviation per day of accuracy. That's seconds. Back to the comment, which is better than superlative chronometer right now. Yeah, I think that's the case. Here's the thing. Rolex is not losing business to Metis certified movements. I have the image because I put it in my recent video. Oh, I should plug my recent video. By the way, I did put out a recent video for folks. If you want to check out my video about why I think Cartier is outperforming Omega, I released that yesterday. I decided I'd been gone so long, I needed to do a pre-recorded video for folks to enjoy. So I've dropped the link to that in the chat. You can check it out at some point. But it includes my Morgan Stanley chart that I made with Excel, so it looks super Excel-y. But the Omega is not doing well. Like, don't get me wrong, they're not doing bad. They're number 3 in the Swiss industry, but they're a distant number 3 at this point, and they're falling. And so I think you're right, Patel. I think Rolex doesn't like the idea that another company has a superior mechanical movement in readily accessible watches. Basically, I think they want to control that aspect in their price tier, even though at this point, superlative already. -2 +2 is so accurate. It's hard to get worked up about. But again, hey, it's mechanical watches. You gotta, everything is like a little teeny bite of the apple. So I get it from a competitive standpoint. However, ultimately, sales wise, they hardly need it. So, but I guess, until Rolex messes up, they hardly need to do much of anything other than get more watches out into the hands of people that want to buy them. But anyway, thank you for the additional information on the natural escapement. And thank you, David, for the clarification about it not being a teaser on the double barrel. David does continue saying, I am one of the unlucky people with the Rolex 3200 series movements losing amplitude. I just had 2 come back from warranty service for it. I'm a little gun shy about new Rolex movements. I changed your Y to shy since I'm pretty sure that's what you meant. Normally I don't like to jump in on a movement right when it comes out, just because while they may have tested certain things in the factory, real world environment has always taught us a lot beyond that. I'm the one I'm thinking of is probably the one you're thinking of. When Tudor first put out its in-house movement, I think there were some issues with the date adjustment on that complication. A lot of them had to be reserviced. They got it figured out, in under a year, and then things went fine from there. The Zenith of the 3600 movement, I have that in my Zenith Chronomaster original. Similar situation though. That first year, there were some issues where I read a lot of people were having to send them back in for service. There was some, I don't remember. In that instance, I don't remember what was going wrong. It was probably some aspect of the chronograph, if I recall, but I don't remember what. So I bought a later one. I waited a couple years and then went ahead and got a 3600 movement. Now I did buy it gray. So did I get an older one? I don't think so, because when the model came out, I was pretty sure I was safe. But I was reluctant to get the movement that first year. And then I feel like I was justified in my reluctance based off of what ended up happening. But anyway, so that's Rolex. So let's go ahead and let's just pick another brand. Let's jump up, to the subject of my video against Omega, which is not at Watches and Wonders, as I noted, because they're in the Swatch group. But let's talk about Cartier. So Cartier usually, I think, has a pretty strong Watches and Wonders. Cartier had a very good year in 2024. Them and Rolex are the top 2 Swiss watch manufacturers, and both of them expanded their turnover income quite significantly. I mean, Rolex very significantly, but Cartier did very well for itself also. And so normally they tend to do a blend of things. We usually see some new iterations of the tank. I'm not hoping for more tank musts, but I bet they'll do some. I would hope they would go ahead at this point and make a stab at doing something more sporty. So they used to have a dive watch. You may not have known this. I wasn't really familiar with it because it's not currently in production, but Cartier has a dive watch. And it's weird. It says Cartier as you might think it would be. So I'm going to go to Chrono 24 so you can see one, because if I do a search, the website links to it, but like the Cartier website, but you can't actually see them there anymore because they're not for sale. This is what they are. Very weird. But so the Calibre de Cartier diver, I would like to see them maybe bring this back or introduce a diver. This would be my hope for Cartier. They're doing so well, but it's mostly in the dress watch space. Everything that they have is weird and funky. Maybe don't be quite so weird and funky. I'm not saying bring this back. I'm saying do a dive watch and do it Cartier. But I don't know about, me and avant-garde, we're not the best friends. So I don't know about a dive watch with Roman numerals still on the dial. Maybe we keep it entirely Arabic this time, not just the bezel. But, they have the capabilities. You don't have to have a fancy movement for that. And Cartier has moved away from doing a ton of in-house fancy calibers. They keep their watches pretty slim. They're functional. They have good accuracy. The price points are exceedingly competitive, and it's a very prestigious brand from its name, even though the watch price points are actually quite towards the entry level of luxury at this stage. You have a lot of options from Cartier that are well within your reach if you're interested in Tudor. So this would be my hope. It doesn't have to be a dive watch. It could be any sports watch, but normally I want brands to do more dress watches, but with Cartier, it's the opposite. I hope Cartier gives us something that is a sports watch. It's just that space that they aren't really competing in. And don't get me wrong, they're doing perfectly well as a company, so they don't need to do it. But I think it would be really cool to see them go and do something I don't want to say like this because I don't think I would ever buy this, but something that is sportier, I think would be really cool to see out of a brand that's so known for jewelry, and they've done it before. They have the chops, they have the watchmaking chops to do it. So, I mean, I'm sure we're going to see probably some new iteration of the Santos. I don't know, it'll be the sporty one or the dressy one. Maybe something with the Panther. They'll do a new Panther or something. But, I'm sure they'll have some nice stuff at it. It's just, that's what I want. That's my hope. So, Koji says, très bizarre regarding the dive watch. And Tuna says that Cartier is a desk diver for sure. It had 300 meters of water resistance, Tuna. Unlike some Panerais, which Panerai now, what is Panerai doing? I don't understand what Panerai is doing. Is Panerai at Watches and Wonders? Yes, they are. Panerai is a tough brand for me because I don't view it as a brand that I'm capable of wearing. There are some that I can. They're very big, right? They're very big watches. So here's Panerai's website, by the way. So they're teasing innovation from the depths, but again, what does that mean? All they do are dive watches. My biggest issue with Panerai is I think they need to branch out. I think that they've gone way too upmarket for a very toolish looking watch. But the problem is, with all of the additional money you pay, you're getting less water resistance. It's less robust. It's like they're making them daintier, but charging more money. And I just don't think there's a market for that for Panerai. So anyway, I'm not here to talk about, we could do an episode on what Dennis thinks Panerai should do to save itself, but that's not the purpose of this episode. So my hope for Panerai would be not a Radiomir, not a Luminor. Give us something else. Even if it's another dive watch, give us something else. And that hope will be dashed because I don't think Panerai is capable of doing this. But maybe, I mean, they have some of this other stuff. But it all is so samey. It's so hard for me. It's a good look if you can pull the look off. It's just, there's so many other existing options. I don't feel really good about anything other than I would hope they would do a different case shape. That's what I hope out of Panerai. Let's see here. And let me go ahead and put the list back up. So you guys feel free to, name a brand or give your own thoughts. This is a very casual sort of stream today. I will go ahead and Parmigiani. There we go. This is one of my favorite Swiss brands, Parmigiani. Very expensive brand. Here's the thing. They've been doing a lot of Tondas and iterations, new complications and stuff on the Tondas. I believe it was last year's Watches and Wonders where they unveiled the Toric was back. My hope is a very simple hope. I want to see more iterations of the Toric revealed at Watches and Wonders. And I think this hope actually has a pretty good chance of happening. I think that I'm not going to say the well has run dry to do another Tonda. There's plenty of stuff I'm sure they can do on the Tonda platform. I own a Tonda. Actually, I own two. I own a classic Tonda, which I've seen as I don't know. Sometimes I've seen it labeled as a Kalpa Tonda, but it's not the rectangle. It's sort of a dressy, though, Tonda 39. Then I have one of the more modern Tonda PF micro rotors, one of the basic steel ones. But the Toric, again, they did time only. They did this. They did a chronograph. Beautiful watches, very, very expensive. But I would just like to see it. It's not one that I'm really hoping to own. I would probably get rid of a Parmigiani at this point to make room for another one anyway, if I were to find one that I could justify paying the money for. But the Toric was not a model I liked historically. I liked the old Tondas and I liked the new Tondas. The old Torics, the hands didn't work for me. They were javelin style hands, and it just didn't click for me. The new Toric, I really like this watch. I wish it wasn't so obscenely priced, but I really like this watch, especially the time only ones. But anyway, so I do think we will see something, Retroponte, maybe some sort of weird, luxurious GMT, basically the stuff we've seen in the Tonda, but applied to the Toric. I think that's all very, very achievable for them, because one of the things about if you've looked at the Parmigianis on the Tonda line, these complications aren't all that practical. This is the version I have. So it's just a time plus date only model. So you have these features, but you don't have bezels indicating things. So you have a second hand for a GMT or something, but you have no bezel that tells you what the time. It's just they're very beautiful, but their functionality in terms of complication is very limited. But they look so good. But this is why I can justify getting a time only. But I would just love to see what they would do. So that's one for me that I'm hoping to see from that brand at least. So Tuna has added in, I can't imagine Panerai doing something else. I mean, I can imagine it because I'm a big dreamer, Tuna, but I don't think they would. At this point and what the state of the brand is, I don't even know if they could bring themselves to do an R&D risk to do a new case shape or something. I mean, you want the safe bet on predictions for Panerai. It's going to be, they're doing the Hublot thing. Let's do a lot of different materials. They could continue to play around with some materials and do some stuff. In fact, I expect that they would do that. That's not my hope, but that's my expectation. Speaking of materials, though, I do want to go ahead. Let's jump over to Tudor. So we already did Rolex, so let's do Tudor. Last year, a lot of people felt Tudor, and the video here doesn't show you anything. It shows you a red pencil, which tells you nothing. Except maybe a color. Maybe. Is that the color? Is that the red of a Coke bezel? They already did a Coke bezel last year, but maybe we get one with white numerals instead of gilt this time. I don't know. Anyway, Tudor is where Hans Wilsdorf Foundation does experiment with materials. We've seen them do gold. We've seen them do silver. We've seen them do bronze. We've seen them do ceramic. Could we see tantalum? Could we see more of the more exotic materials? My hope is yes, that we see Tudor do a new material that they have not yet. Not oh, look, here's the 1926 in ceramic. No. That's not what I want to see. I want to see them use a material they haven't used yet. That's my hope. I hope to see it. It's not my expectation, but it is my hope. Last year, I was getting, before the video had popped up and I got distracted. I was going to say that for a lot of people, Tudor won Watches and Wonders. And I would probably broadly agree. I can't remember if I agreed at the time. I think I did, but if not, I've revised my stance and I would agree. The thing was last year, Watches and Wonders, sorry to do the whole face palm thing. The problem with Watches and Wonders last year is you had pretty much all these same brands. You had all these brands. Everything was so unobtainium, absurdly priced. Don't get me wrong. These are predominantly luxury watch manufacturers. I expect these to be serious, expensive purchases that you have to think about and that many people cannot afford. I totally get it. But it was like everything was a halo piece. Remember IWC and that ridiculous like moon phase perpetual calendar that didn't need to be reset until like our sun went supernova? It's like, it's cool, but like that's all I remember about like everything that everyone launched except pretty much Tudor was so ridiculously expensive. I couldn't fathom buying it. So let me give you a general hope, not specific to a brand, that this year it's not like that. This year, there are actual commercial options that these brands are unveiling that people can buy, and we can get excited about maybe owning some of them. Not just get excited, not like with me and the hope on the Toric. I've seen used Torics of the new design. I haven't seen a single one under $40,000. So for me, the Toric is not a watch I'm contemplating buying. I like the look of it, and I can appreciate watches. That's the same with Longa. Like all Longa and Zona, my hope for this year would be for them to do a new something with the Longa one that isn't just stuffing in a gazillion complications and making it a six-figure watch. Just another, I don't know, maybe a fourth size way. They have the little Longa one. They have the grand Longa one. They have the regular Longa one. Is there any room in between those two to do something like that? Is there a way maybe to reverse the configuration so you're still doing the golden ratio, but the power reserve is over on the left, and the date is shifted over? I don't know. I'd like to see them maybe play around, keep it in the golden ratio, obviously, but move the stuff around just to give it a refreshed look, but not making it more complicated. That's my hope for Longa. But my hope in general is that we see some stuff that people could actually go and say, oh yeah, I could go and buy this, or I could go and wait for it gray and then buy it, or I could probably pull this off used once it hits used, but not this everything's $100,000+ stuff that it just felt like last year's Watches and Wonders was a lot of that, except for Tudor. Tudor had a whole lot. They had that monochrome sub that everyone loved, and they had the Coke bezel that everyone loved. No one bought them because Tudor did terrible last year, but the excitement was still there. So that was the thing. Chris, welcome to the live stream, Chris. Chris says the market demands $20,000 watches. The market demands watches under $10,000 and gets watches over 20, but usually those watches are over 100,000. So very, very frustrating. Chronoswiss. Last year, Chronoswiss had one of the ugliest watch releases at Watches and Wonders of anyone. It was absolutely terrible. My hope this year is Chronoswiss just releases something more attractive and not this Breguet Bel Canto wannabe thing. I don't care for this. But just something that isn't. They did like their Green Monster last year. It was tough. It was like this. It's one of these, but I think it was like this one, but I don't think it was the Psycho, but maybe it was. Anyway, like this, it's just, these look like toys. And again, the prices are bad. They're like $50,000 watches and the prices are bad. So Chronoswiss is the unofficial brand of Watches with Dennis. I've never owned a Chronoswiss. I used to really try and talk them up though, because Chronoswiss needs all the help it can get, guys. And I'm trying to help them out. I'm trying to be a bro, but it's almost impossible for me to love their watches at this point. They have gotten so ridiculously fun. That sounds terrible when I say it like that. They're just too fun. They're too fun for the price. That's my thing. It's almost like they want to be Moser, but Moser is more refined with their fun in general. Moser Moser is going to Moser, but it's too crazy. And you always have to have the huge onion crowns and everything else. It's like, it doesn't mesh for me all that well. So let me see some of the other, Moser, let's go ahead and touch on them a bit. I forgot that they were going to be at Watches and Wonders, but I see that they are in the list. So, I was trying to think, my only hope for them is, this is a very boring hope, is just more pioneers in the smaller case size. So, they released that Arctic Blue one, and 41 millimeter, I think is what they officially call this. We'll find out while I'm clicking. Their site's a little slow, so apologies. But when that came out, that's a much more wearable size, because one of the problems with Moser is they're very much associated with being very large watches in the modern configuration. And it's true, they do tend to skew very, very big. Apologies for the cough. So I have one of 40 millimeter. So they got these down to 40 millimeter when this came out 2 or 3 years ago, I think. But at the time, this was the only dial color. They've done a few more, but they still haven't fully converted the entire catalog over. I really would like to see them do more and more. And I think they will. I think this is a realistic hope, because I really like the Pioneer. This is the one I have with the black DLC and the funky blue is what they call it, funky blue. But I like almost all of these except for the what is this called? The Mega Cool. I never liked the Mega. It reminds me of menthol cigarettes. I don't know. But all the other ones I've always really liked. Really beautiful dials on the Pioneers. And used, the pricing is not too bad. You can actually find some of these older large ones under 10,000 readily now, like the red ones and stuff. I see closer to 9. So again, it's a brand that can be found under 10K, but yeah, I'm just hoping that that we just see some more simple stuff out of them. Oh, sorry. COVID is a pain. At least I muted on that one. So anyway, that's my hope with Moser. All right, I do see a few things in the chat. Tuna says, I have yet to see a Chronoswiss in the metal. I'm trying to think. I may have seen an old one, but not the current, none of the current stuff. If you go back, you can find, like, if you want a gold watch, incidentally, go ahead on Chrono 24 and explore some of the older Chronoswiss models and stuff. You'll find a lot of regulators. So if you like gold and you like regulators, you can find some pretty approachable price points if you're into precious metal. Definitely one I would recommend looking at. I've not owned one, so I can't tell you how good they are. I can just say that the price points do make them seductive. Underachieving watch collector says, Dennis would buy a gray dialed Chronoswiss. That's not fair, underachieving, because I am drawn to buying a gray dial everything. I almost was looking at Joma after I went to the Swatch store. I went to Joma shop to see what they had in their Swatch section because they have one. They get some of them gray. And speaking of gray, they had a gray dial watch, and it was obviously discounted. And I was like, eh. And then I told myself, don't do it, Dennis, for two reasons. One, underachieving watch collector will judge you and say, look, you bought another gray dial watch, which would be true. And two, I already have gray dial watches. So it's like, I'm trying to be good. I'm trying not to. But I'm still sorely tempted by Vacheron Constantin's slate dial malts that they've done back about 10 years ago. Speaking of which, Vacheron, they will be at Watches and Wonders. What will they do? Obviously, they're still talking about their reinvention of the 222, which is putting it in stainless steel and then giving it a matte blue dial that everyone seems to prefer the overseas dial of. But nonetheless, this is what has happened before Watches and Wonders. But they will be at Watches and Wonders, so I do not think, and I do not hope, that they come out with another version of the 222 for Watches and Wonders. I do not think that's going to be the case. Where I am, what I would hope is that they do something with the overseas. And I don't just mean like a green dial overseas. We've seen them do that before a couple of years ago. And don't get me wrong, it's incredibly attractive, but they've revamped the overseas like 3 times at least. I know of 3 generations. There could be something perhaps that could be done here. It is their most successful line at this point. But it just, again, other than maybe some of the blue dial ones, it's difficult to really go ahead and find a lot of demand for these. They're not hard to get. Let me put it that way. I was starting to ramble. So I'd like to see them do something a little bit different. I thought it was pretty cool when they did the retrograde in the moon phase. Maybe there's something, just a twist on the dial they could do. But honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing, my hope would be to see a new gen of the overseas with a significant revamp. I think it's a very, very long shot prediction. But that's my hope, is I want to see them rework this yet again. I think at this point, it needs a different look if it's going to get any hope of traction. It just needs one. It's just not popular enough to get a whole lot of demand there. Anyway, Joe Bolt, welcome to the live stream, by the way, says Steel 1921. I had not contemplated that. Do I hope they would do a Steel 1921? Personally, I don't care if they do a Steel or not. Here would be my hope. If you want 1921, I want them to do a platinum one. They've done it before, but only in 40. 36.5 is the right size for that watch. Do the platinum in the 36.5. That's what I would hope. There, that's a better. I hope for me personally, I hope for that more than a new overseas. But I love the 1921. But I don't hope for it in steel because I wouldn't buy it in steel. I think that that watch can stay as precious metal, and I would go with a competitor probably if I wanted to steal one personally. But Koji does not seem to agree with me. He thinks that would be a very cool idea. MCart, welcome to the live stream. Vacheron milking overseas like Omega does with Speedies. I mean, what else can they do? Nothing else has that traction. They're the 222s. They've I'm going to say they paywalled it. I mean, they priced the 222s higher than the overseas, even though they're less functional watches. Like the bracelets aren't as adjustable. The resistance is different for water. You have to go to the boutiques to get them. I mean, they've built the 222 to be special. So even though the overseas is really just a modern interpretation of the 222. So they can't do that with it. I mean, they can't do anything with the 222 because then would undermine it's the whole value retention, undermining everyone who went and jumped through all the hoops. So they can't do anything with the 222. The 1921's too weird. All the historique stuff is too weird and too dressy. I mean, the 222 is in the historique catalog, but I mean the rest of it basically. So you have that challenge. there's just, I mean, look at their collections. The Patrimony, it's like the most discounted Holy Trinity model on the used market. You can find Patrimonies for days. You can probably find a number of Patrimonies for under 10K at this point. The 56 I think is an attractive watch, but a lot of people don't want to get it because it's not Geneva sealed, because of the movement difference there. So yeah, the overseas is it's their one trick. It's their one sports watch. They don't have like an Aquanaut to go along with it, like Patek. So yeah, it's tough for Vacheron. I think that, yeah, milking it is the only thing they know how to do. That's the only thing that really makes sense for them at this point. But that's why I would say, like, come out with a new gen. Just make a whole new gen of it. You could still sell you could run the two gens in parallel. You could still make the current models, and just not do any new ones. And then come out with a new, it's the same thing, but the shit, they go and look at like the Gen 1s and Gen 2s, and you can see how they've evolved it. That's why I'm suggesting it. I don't think they have the confidence to launch a new sports line. So my hope would just be to reiterate the overseas and see if that catches fire, whereas it hadn't before. Tap, welcome to live stream. Glad you could make it. And Patrick with Pocket Watch Time, glad for you to be here as well. David says Vacheron needs a mid-sized time and date overseas with a Geneva seal movement. Again, outside of the 56, I do think they're Geneva sealing everything. So if they were to do it, I think that would be, I think you're right. It would be successful. It would assuredly be Geneva sealed if they were to do a mid-size. I also think maybe do some more stuff without date might be a good thing. Vacheron's one of those, like Patek. They don't tend to like to color match the date windows, and that's just maybe it's just a me thing, but I greatly prefer color matching, or just don't do it. But they tend to not. They tend to not do that. So anyway. Tap says Vacheron is in a tough spot. Even my experience at their boutique wasn't pleasant. Well, I hope they weren't mean to you. It's, again, I don't live near a Vacheron boutique. When I was at the one in Dallas in 2024, they were very polite, but no one was in there. So of course they had to be. And showed me a number of 1921s, which they had plenty of. They did not have any 222s. And of course, that was before the steel one had come out. David says the overseas 34.5 millimeter is not Geneva seal. Oh, is it not? Interesting. Also, the movement on that one is disproportionately small, which throws off the dimensions of the watch. I had no idea there were no overseas that weren't Geneva. That's it. That's fascinating. Okay. Wow. I really thought it was just the 56. Okay. Yes, then there's even more justification. It's too confusing to keep it. It's like Oris with like the Aquas. Is the Aquas using an ETA? Is or using the new model? It gets a little, with Oris's case, it's different because the price points are much, much lower. But it's tough when you have the same model lines and then the stuff in them, it starts to get really different. Obviously, you're not worried about a Geneva sealing with an Oris, but there's a big power reserve gap between those two. Speaking of Oris, my hope, I got to mute. I'm going to cough. I'm sorry. My hope for Oris is that they do not do another Muppets watch. A very simple hope. You came out with the Miss Piggy. Nobody gets it. The Kermit was fun. Nobody bought it. If you want to do another Muppets watch, okay, but not at Watches and Wonders. Do not do it at Watches and Wonders. Do something else. Anything else. That is my hope. Just not another Muppet watch. I have no expectations for Oris. I think they're struggling a bit. Again, like this watch we see on the screen when that was revealed, a lot of people got excited. I think that's like the third time they've done that reissue. But I don't know how many people actually bought it. Their poor watches tank so hard on gray. It's tough. I think Oris is actually struggling quite a bit at this point with trying to figure out what to do. Their in-house movement is really nice. It's a pretty impressive movement with a very nice power reserve, but the price point to get in goes up $1,000 with that watch. So it's it's tough. Yeah, anyway, that's just my hope. I just don't think the Muppet thing's working for them, and I just hope they don't try and keep leaning into that. Not at a big show like Watches and Wonders. They can come out mid-year with it, and I wouldn't care, but that's kind of my basic thought there. Tap says Panerai and JLC are bigger issues for Richemont compared to Vacheron. Well, I mean, we talked about Panerai earlier before you were on, most likely, Tap. Panerai, I think, is hurting mightily. They've been hurting I don't think I'm making a hard take here. They've been hurting mightily for a long time now. And it's tough when you're a brand that basically relies on two models, the Radiomir and the Luminor. And all you do is lower the water resistance and up the price and put them in weirder and weirder materials. So you're like Hublot, but you pivoted into it. And so all the Paneristas, not all, I'm hyperbole, guys. I'm going to use some hyperbole on the stream. All the Paneristi are pissed off because you've abandoned your tool watch roots. And you're mirroring a brand that a lot of people make fun of. And maybe the making fun of Hublot was unfair, but that's what happens. So Panerai stuff. I think Panerai needs a new model. That's what I think. I think they need to do another. It can be a dive watch, and that's what I said earlier. My hope would be that they release a new case shape. New case shape. If it's dive, it's fine, but not a Radiomir, not a Luminor. That's my hope. I don't expect it at all. I don't think they know what to do. So all they do is the same two shapes with different stuff, and then they ask for like $20,000+ and special trips to go yachting and stuff. And it's like, that's not what the brand ever was. But so you went up market, but it still looks like it's not an upmarket watch. It just looks like a really robust tool watch. Anyway, that's tough. JLC we have not talked about. So we will jump to that. I do want to catch up with a few of the other chat comments. Patrick said no more Muppets except for Gonzo. Gonzo was my favorite. He can come out mid-year, but not at Watches and Wonders. Koji says, unless it's an animal watch that features a minute repeater snare drum, roll, and cymbal crash. That's pretty elaborate. Maybe they could do like the Bel Canto, do a chiming watch, but it would, instead of just one ding, it does like ba-boom, psst. Maybe we could get, I mean, that's a lot of stuff in there. So that's going to be like a 50 millimeter watch, but it would be fun. I would definitely consider it used or gray. Tuna says there's always room for Cookie Monster. Cookie Monster is Sesame Street, though. So I wasn't counting him in the same grouping. And haven't others already done Cookie Monster? I'm not sure. Patrick is rocking his Panerai today. Is it a Luminor or is it a Radiomir? Because it's nothing else. Trap Vision says they do need to revisit the tool element over fashion. I was listening to the Blog to Watch weekly. I think it was them. It might have been Superlative. And Ariel Adams had advocated something akin to that. I think a couple of them did it, actually. Basically, for Panerai to get back to its roots, do a Radiomir, do a Luminor, stainless steel, like simple, basic, approachable, like entry luxury pricing, and rebuild from there. Like dump the SKUs, go back to basics, and then iterate while keeping tool focus is what I remember him trying to advocate for. I think those should be in the collection. Why walk away from it? It's like Omega hasn't walked away. I know a lot of people have complained about how bad the price increases have gotten on Speedmasters and stuff, but there's still a Hesalite option, still relatively approachable. I mean, Omega hasn't forgotten its roots, but they're clearly trying to drive up market more and more to compete with Rolex on pricing, to mixed effect. Panerai's in a tougher situation because Omega still has like their DeVilles and stuff. They still have entry level watches that are competitive with things like Tudor. Panerai just doesn't have the diversity of catalog to do this. So it's real. I would not want to be the CEO of Panerai. That would be a real tough nut to crack to try and figure out how to fix it. I do want to go ahead and jump to what Tap said, though, bringing up JLC. So let's go ahead and let's talk about them because they will be at Watches and Wonders. JLC has always been a brand that when it's come to their Watches and Wonders stuff, I've really liked the look of it. Like so what are they going to do? They're going to come out with reversos. They'll look good. They'll be really expensive, too expensive, using the same movements they always use. And Maybe we'll get something in one of the master lines, like Master Ultra Thin or Master Control. That's all I'm really expecting. What I would hope they would finally do is revamp the Polaris. That's my hope. I think the Polaris, in a lot of ways, and I've handled a Polaris before. It's a nice watch, but it's never worked all that well for JLC. And it's getting long in the tooth at this point. So my hope would be that they actually seriously redo it, basically release it as a new iteration of the Polaris. That would be my hope. A backup hope, and I've heard some other people mention this one. I think I heard Tim Moser discuss this on the 1916 podcast, actually, was bring back something that they used to be known for. Was it the Mimivox? I don't remember the name of it. I don't know JLC like he does, but they used to have an alarm watch. He wanted them to bring back the alarm watch. That would be a pretty cool idea. I don't have the same hope for that. I really think that the Polaris is where it's at. Dive watches are the number one sports watch that people want. Alarm watches are gimmicky and not a lot of people buy them. If they were a big deal, then Vulcain would be a much more respected brand than it is, which is much more of a niche, if you know sort of thing. So I think the Polaris is where it's at. I think so. That's my hope. You got to do the Polaris. The price points on these Polaris are right there with the Submariners. If they could hold the line on the pricing, but come out with a new version of it, I'm not saying it's going to take sales away from Rolex, but they could compete with the the 300M, which, people are pissed about the bracelet. People are pissed about the helium escape valve. The new ones that Omega's done with the no dates got even more expensive than the date versions. They put them on mesh, which is probably comfortable, but doesn't look as good. There's room, is what I'm saying. Polaris, there's a space there in that kind of, it would be better if it was cheaper, but that's true for everything from JLC. It would be better if it was cheaper. I really think most of these watches should be still in 4-figure, not 5. But that's a bell I don't think we can get JLC to unring. Or let me put blame where blame goes. It's a bell I don't think we can get Richemont to unring. It's become exceedingly apparent with the reversals, though, which have almost, I feel, doubled in price with the same movements they always had. It's a damn shame, is what it is. It's a damn shame, and I think it's done nothing but hurt them. I don't think that strategy works. I think that's what your basic 101 business guy thinks is, we'll just raise prices and we don't have to sell as many watches and we'll make just as much money. It's not working. Not anymore. They got too high. Flew too close to the sun, Icarus, so it's time for your wings to fall apart. And it's tough to see it. But hey, it let me get rid of my Reverso for more than I bought it for when I decided to go ahead and get a different watch instead. So yay me, I guess. All right, catching up with the chat. Tap says, Panerai started making chronographs and pseudo dress watches. Precious metals. I wanted to say it like Schmiegel. Precious. Was the previous head a Nepo baby? I don't know. LVMH is like the constant, it feels like a constant shuffling of Nepo babies. So with LVMH, I would say yes. I don't, but specifically with Panerai, I don't know. I don't know enough. Tap Vision says Panerai should build a 42 millimeter trench watch with 300 meters of water resistance. That could be pretty cool. And the 42 millimeter would make it very wearable. The Panerais are pretty wearable. When I went to a Panerai boutique last year and tried some on. Now I tried on a 47 millimeter one and it looked bad. It looked like I was a little kid wearing my dad's watch. But they had other sizes that were quite workable. So it's like the Ploprof. Omega's Ploprof works on more wrists than people think. It's because it's just really wide. The lug-to-lug is actually not all that obscene. But when you hear 42 millimeter, a lot of people get much more comfortable, especially with a dive watch. Much more comfortable. Underachieving says JLC could bring back a sector dial in steel. That would be pretty cool. Yes, I do like sector dials though. So that's an easy win for me. That's really it in terms of hopes. I mean, there are other brands. Obviously, IWC had a big attention last year. Hermes is going to be there. I'd love to see I've been getting more and more interested in their square watch design. I think it's very attractive. Still never found one that I've wanted enough to pull the trigger on, but I've looked at them as we've seen more and more hit the used market. And their reputation for watchmaking has continued to win over people, that they aren't just a fashion brand playing in watches, but they actually take it serious. There's some stuff like that. Gerald Charles is set to be there. I have been curious to see, that sort of design. Have you ever looked at their shapes before? I, I again, the pricing is so high, I can't get excited about it because it's not a brand I inherently love. But the shape is cool and unique. Here, I'll throw some up on the screen where we've seen like the Maestros and stuff and the Master Links. Again, I not really my cup of tea, but I'm very curious to see what they might finally do something that does resonate with me. But I doubt it would be approachable for me to be able to buy. But again, those little one-offs, I don't really have hopes for them. It's just more of I'm curious. I'm very curious. So next week should be fun. I will try and put out some videos. They'll be pretty basic, just first reaction things. And then I have not forgotten, guys. I know a number of you have requested that I put together a panel to do this or that, where we compare watches and say, would you buy this or would you buy that? I've held off for a couple of reasons. One, I was traveling and been ill, obviously. But the second has been what I've been leaning towards doing is Watches and Wonders and doing things that got revealed at Watches and Wonders as this one or that one from different brands. That's kind of where I'm thinking I'm going to do it. I thought it might be kind of fun because last year I did a panel after Watches and Wonders and had a few other I think Patrick was on from Pocket Watch Time, and I had a couple other YouTubers on, and we just sort of went over like what we liked, what we didn't like from Watches and Wonders. But instead, I thought maybe just do it as a fun game and just be like this or that, and then you kind of know which watch people prefer when you do a matchup. The only thing that's holding me back on it is I have no idea. I like to position things that are retail at about the same price point, so I have to see just if there's enough to work with at very similar pricing to be able to do that. But anyway, that's where I'm at mentally. So I'm thinking about doing that. That won't be a Saturday live stream. If I do it, we'll do it during the week in an evening where normal people can be on. But that's really it. I just want to go ahead and end with that. So thank you, everyone who was able to tune in live and providing all your thoughts on what you're hoping to see out of Watches and Wonders. It's only a few days away, and we will find out if those are true. I will plan to be back next Saturday with a live stream. Probably will have some pre-recordeds during the week after Tuesday, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll just have to see. I have to wedge it in between my job. This YouTube don't pay the bills. So anyway, but we should have a fun time. April is an exciting month. So anyway, I will talk to you all on the next stream. Take care, everybody. See you later.